I'm Keith Griffiths. I'm the chairman and I'm founder of Aedas. And we founded the company in about 1985 with the stated ambition to be local and global, an international company that brought the best of international practice to the local scene with a full understanding of the local scene. Now most of our work is in mainland China. We have offices also in Europe, Southeast Asia and the Middle East, so we're ideally positioned to understand the changes that are being wrought by COVID. Prior to COVID, the world was accelerating at an enormous pace. Huge changes were occurring. The financial markets were red hot. Offices were crammed full of people, the streets and the shopping centres extremely busy. Since COVID, we have seen massive change. Some good, some bad. The world was ready for change. Let's consider the transformational change that the internet brought. People were increasingly socializing online, and the birth of online retailing was creating problems for the old-fashioned shopping malls and department stores. COVID has accelerated that change. Within workplace, what we saw was an increasing densification of the workplace. People were being crammed in like chickens into a coop. We had hot desks, WeWork, people rushing around trying to get on to this faster and faster pace of life. Since COVID, we've all taken a big breath and we've stopped. And we're thinking about how do we want to live our lives in the future. Many companies have told their workforce they don't need to come back to work at all, such as Twitter, and can continue to work from home. What does that mean to our towns and our cities and our buildings? So if everybody's buying product online, what is the purpose of a shopping mall? What's the purpose of a shop? They will have to be repurposed as places of entertainment, of education, and most importantly, places where people can socialize. We are human beings, we need to socialize. These palaces of purchasing, called shopping malls, will no longer be places where we just buy product. They'll be places where we go to meet, to exchange news, to be entertained and to entertain. They will return to the old former Greek agoras or Roman forums or the high street itself, where people every day would meet and strengthen their communities and their societies. Many of these buildings will not be able to match the changes that are required. Large shopping malls will be deserted. People are not going to go to an out-of-town mall if they can't meet their friends there. But what is going to work will be the high street. That's at the heart of our cities, the heart of our towns, and it is the heart of our urban communities. People will reinvest in the high street, and also retailers will go back to the high street to create new platforms where people can experience their products, touch and feel their products, and meet their friends. So if we're seeing a positive effect to COVID in the reinvesting in our culture and our communities, what are we seeing for our workplaces? Employers have learnt that they can trust their employees to work from home and meet the targets. 9 till 5 is no longer the mechanism to test to see if a workforce is working efficiently. More importantly, there is now a flexibility, called flexi-time if you like, that we haven't seen since the 1970s, where workforce can turn up any hours between 8 and 12, and similarly in the evening or weekends. Why? One of the biggest reasons is not to crowd the public transport system, to travel safely. What does that mean to the office space, and what does it mean to our apartments? I predict that the office space of the future will be much less densely populated. There will be terraces for fresh air, closer collaboration with nature, biophilic design, where people can be in touch with greenery and nature, many more breakout spaces, and also spaces where people can relax and socialize. So it shifts from being purely work to live work. What does it mean for our apartments? Well, if we're spending increasing time at home working, then we need somewhere to work. We need a space away from the pets or the kids that we can actually work, and maybe with a nice view, a quiet space. There is a new urge upon apartments to incorporate the full live-work dynamic. So our offices are shifting towards living and our apartments are shifting towards working. What does that mean to our towns? Well, when we consider our cities, we have to remember that cities are different across the world. And one of the biggest differences in cities is density. The density of a typical European or American city, excluding Manhattan, of course, is around 5,000 people per square kilometer. The density of Asian cities such as Shanghai or Hong Kong is 30,000 people per square kilometer. That's 5 times or 6 times the density. European Western cities are predominantly low to medium rise, and therefore their social life takes place on the street. The pavement is big enough. The ground level is big enough for all social activities to take place at ground level. During COVID now, what we're finding is that the most successful areas in the Western world are the hearts of our traditional towns and cities, the high streets. And I think that can be seen nowhere better than Covent Garden. In Covent Garden, we have a traditional marketplace. We have 7 dials where 7 streets converge together. The buildings are about 5 to 6 stories high. The ground floor is retail. The floors above a restaurant, followed by office or apartment. A true mixed commercial live-work community. And right now, when the lockdowns are not in place, those streets are buzzing with activity as people come back to find themselves and to socialize in a vibrant, wonderful place. That's the vision for the future post-COVID in the Western world. So what's going to happen in a high-density city? Well, the first thing is we don't have enough public space. I never have had enough public space in our high-density Asian cities. If we've got 6 times as many people in a tower above a street, then obviously the pavement is not enough for all of those people. So we need more public space. We need public space at first floor level and second floor level in terms of bridges, in basements, parks in the sky, connecting buildings up, and most importantly, as opposed to towers coming down solid, immutable to the ground, they need to become more porous, more open, where we have nature and air moving through those spaces to make them safe and to make them enjoyable for people to socialize and to irrigate the spaces. Nowhere is that seen better than in West Shenzhen, where the city fathers have actually adopted a regulation that 10% of the gross floor area can be multiple stories high, 2, 3, 4 stories high. And those spaces are for the public. Shenzhen understands that public space can exist at many levels, and therefore what we're seeing in Shenzhen and the new town of Tianhai is a very porous and open city which segregates the street level with all the cars from the people at the levels above. We now are designing true, porous, permeable, interesting, fascinating buildings with parks in the sky where the public move through at many levels, where the sunlight penetrates right into the heart of the building, and where retail is no longer a purchasing activity, but is a true socializing activity. The entire hub, and we call them hubs, springs to life. When we're designing buildings, it's not just the bricks and mortar that's important. It's the culture of the people and the people themselves and the history, the civilization that we're designing for. China embraces the high-density, high-rise phenomenon. And now China is building what I call city hubs, conjunctions of roadways, subway lines, high-speed train stations, and around these developing not just offices or retail, but also places to live. So the trip to work is fantastically reduced. Young people like to live in the core of vibrant cities. Families would live outside of these cores where we have open space, schools, parks, and so on and so forth. But these city hubs are where the core of city life is contained. And in order to design city hubs, we need to understand the people who are going to live and work in them. And there we need to communicate with those people and make their requirements known to the developers and to the city fathers as we design. Communities are built on ever-widening and intersecting circles of people that impact upon each other and help each other. And we have seen in COVID how these communities have held together, strengthened and helped other communities so that we've all survived through COVID. From my little office here and my circle of offices across the world, we are a collegiate community. What I have learned more than anything else is by operating as a community, I operate strongly. I integrate with the communities that I'm designing for. So post-COVID, what we're coming out with is a world that is more communicating, more culturally concerned, more concerned about society, about supporting itself. We need to take that and build a better world.